everything I can to empathize with men. I don't think masculinity is toxic. I think men are incredibly important and vastly underappreciated. I've heard every story to back up your obvious struggles in the dating world. But the one thing that I can't wrap my brain around is this black pill pessimism where you permanently check out of dating. I really don't like to attack you guys because I already know the laundry list of fears. Women will cheat in a multitude of ways. They're selectively feminine and super entitled these days. The family court system is stacked against you. I get all that. But here's my question. Why are you letting women have this control over you? I sort of get it if you're an older guy who's already felt the pain of divorce and trying to raise your kids from afar. But if you're young and single, this doesn't add up. Checking out of dating basically means you either don't want a family, which if every man adopted your stance, the human race would go extinct, or you plan on having children with women you don't date and don't love. And in that case, you'd be contributing to the fatherless daughter issue that I know you mock women for on these platforms. So staying single might bring some temporary peace, but is that really worth a life of loneliness and no children to leave behind? Alright, some of you are not going to like this one, but I think it's important to address. I do everything I can to empathize with men. I don't think masculinity is toxic. I think men are incredibly important and vastly underappreciated. I've heard every story to...
That is a short from my new favorite creator, and I posted on my Twitter X page earlier today. That, of course, is Billy Ray Brandt, my new favorite creator out there, who helped me realize the toxicity of the black pill / red pill MGTOW content that's out there, because I also realized one day on my own that a lot of this content is AI generated, AI farmed, rage farmed, pulling content from the internet and, from TikTok and YouTube and saying, oh, these are all modern women, and I do have a little bit to expand on this, though, and I will add by saying that I've not always been perfect. I've also gone down this rabbit hole myself, and given my normally positive attitude towards things, that's unusual for me, and that's how easy it is to get roped into this garbage content, and I want to call out for what it is. These extreme situations that do happen or that are discussed on these channels. Of course, as I've mentioned before a couple times on this channel, I've been involved with one such extremity. Of course, that being the situation where I approached a woman in a church, got told I have a boyfriend, and then promptly got reported to the pastoral staff at that church. However, there are classifications of men these days, alpha males and sigma and beta males. I've been called a different one, which is the sigma male. And a sigma male is not going to fall for this particular content or necessarily believe it, because sigmas, we are the types that figure out solutions to these problems. And to that effect, that is my approach now to this. Now, of course, I've stepped aside from dating on a temporary basis, and may be temporary, may not be temporary, but my heart is still open. That makes me different from the MGTOW crowd, who have just openly decided that they're not going to date anymore at all and permanently remove themselves from the dating pool. This is not a healthy approach. And so if you're like myself and you've been called a sigma, we solve these problems. We solve problems. There's a part of me that views some of her clips lately and just realized, you know what, if the marriage laws are really, if the family court laws are really stacked against men, what can I do to change that? I can write. Fortunately, my state senator is actually a very prominent figure in Minnesota. Maybe I should send her an email or send her a post or something. Karen Housley is her name. If that name rings a bell to anybody out there who's a sports fan, her husband is Phil Housley. And, of course, he's a Hockey Hall of Famer, legendary player from the 80s in particular. And she's my state senator, and maybe I will just shoot a little message, say hey, like, what can we do to make the family laws a little bit more fair? we solve things. I've mentioned before, there is a person out there who harasses me on Twitter X, has doxed my address on Twitter X, posted my address out there, and the Sigma in me decided to basically come guns a-blazing at this guy. Not any sort of, there's a mild amount of public humiliation involved in this, but I have reported him. There's a police report out for this guy here. I've given as much information I can about this guy here. He's also roped my own company that I work for into this, tagged them on Twitter X with my End the Simpademic episodes. So I had my company launch an investigation into his sorry ass. And some things have happened there. And I said, well, he came up the other day and he's like, well, you know what? I just, can't stand you. And I said, well, what did I do to make you this way? Turns out he's just an asshole. There's just no other way to put it. I didn't do anything specifically wrong other than possibly defend some of the women that he was also stalking and harassing on Twitter X. So I've gotten all of his, what are they called? Burner profiles. I've gotten a lot of them taken down. I've gotten his board, public internet messaging board, at least temporarily, was taken down, probably because of my actions through my company and getting an investigation launched into him. And so I look at this material, and you may be asking, why are you suddenly following this chick? Why are you suddenly, promoting her? Are you trying to lag on to her extreme popularity? No. Am I simping? No. Look at the name of this channel. I'm totally against that type of behavior. Billy Ray just happens to speak from an angle that I happen to mostly agree with. Of course, I don't agree with her 100%. That would actually make me a simp. And I would be defeating my own purpose. And besides, how boring would life be if you agree with somebody 100% of the time? That said, this approach resonates with me. Discovering that these channels rage farm through artificial intelligence and artificially have narration and have also production tools. And one other thing that I forgot to add about these particular channels on previous episodes this week is this. Since there's no person behind these channels, no person's voice, no person's image, no person's name, they can't be held accountable for the garbage, at least not in a public forum. And I believe this is why they do this. It's because they want to avoid accountability and cash the checks accordingly that they get from posting this content and getting tens of thousands of views. The channels, I would look up, I Google who runs Cosmic Verse, who produces Cosmic Verse. There is no answer. It's a faceless channel. There's a person out there who is using artificial intelligence to generate the content, to shuffle the content, and to provide the narration for this channel. There's not a real-life human behind it, per se. And the real-life human who is the brains of it can't be held accountable. That is why those faceless channels operate the way they do. They don't want to be held accountable in a public forum for the poisonous information that they send. So I don't have much else to say tonight in particular, but also I will add, I'm 52 years old. and my daughter is 19. The red pill stuff, she talks about some people being in my particular bracket who may legitimately have a reason to back away entirely from dating. And of course I fall into that category. But I think the other thing that resonates with this gal is that she seems like a kind of an old soul, and I am too. And when you get that kind of when there's that sort of a connection there, it's totally a platonic thing, but it's just like you completely understand where the other person is coming from. I mean, this person and we could be legitimate friends in real life. And the other thing that she mentioned in a different video of hers, I think is just hilarious. She says, she's talking about short incels. And Billy Ray is only 5 feet tall, 5 foot even. And she gets shamed all the time by men who are 5 foot, 6 or whatever. And they shame her because she's not giving a short guy a chance. Her boyfriend, by the way, is 6 feet tall. And I'm just thinking, I'm watching this short and I'm just like, this is the most ridiculous BS I've ever heard. Why should somebody who desires a man who's 6 feet tall or 6'2" or whatever he is, why should she lower her standards to satisfy some insecure men? And I mean, I'm 5'10". I'm 52 years old. By my estimate, she's never publicly acknowledged what her age is, but I'm going to guess mid to late 20s. No children or anything yet, but definitely not somebody who's beyond that reach. And I hope, I root for everybody's relationships to succeed. Just because they're close friends of mine doesn't mean I'm angling or simping or desiring them. After all, one of the Ten Commandments in the Bible, which I thoroughly believe in, is thou shalt not covet. That is one that is, written on my heart, my consciousness, and my convictions. But I have women friends who are fantastic. And I have stepped aside, sort of, I don't actively pursue, but I've decided if God, and I've said this before on this channel, if God were to provide the opportunity for me to have another relationship with somebody someday, I would actually cheerfully take it. Because sometimes I wonder, what are these MGTOW guys thinking? I'm perfectly content and at peace with my life as it presently exists. But there's something remarkable about having a true connection and attachment with somebody. And as I mentioned in last night's video, for me that's happened exactly once. But it happened when I was 28. And it was remarkable. Sometimes I want to go back to that time. I just don't want young men out there to look at themselves in the future when they reach my age. I've been married. I have a daughter. I had one other relationship, which was basically the love of my life. I don't want any of these men or young men to reach my age without those types of things, with the deep regrets that I fear that they will have. And so that's why Billy's statements resonate with me. And if every man on the planet took the attitude of the black pill content, humanity would go extinct. Because if all men decided that they were not going to get into relationships we're not going to have kids. That's exactly what happened. And of course, the second scenario that she set out there is that, oh, they're going to have, these men who are going to be backing away from dating or intending to have relationships with, children with women they don't love or have relationships with. I think this is the least likely of the two. Mainly because if they really do believe that the courts are stacked against them, having children is actually going to be anathema to these men. So anyway, thanks for sticking with me on this little deep dive here tonight. It's a lot to go through and a lot to sift through, but I'm a believer, that I think if men and women just learn how to do better, we can come together and we can make dating great again. So anyway, we'll just call our little group here, and I just have such a tiny group of followers right now. I appreciate every one of you out there. I appreciate everyone who watches my episodes. So we'll just call ourselves Team Simpademic. Or Team End the Simpademic, or TETS. Team End the Simpademic. Men and women who are going to work on getting better. Speaking of getting better, I'm going to add one more thing here before I go. Just completely forgot I was going to include it. But men who temporarily step back from dating to improve themselves, maybe to work on their careers and get themselves in a better position, to be open to that possibility later on, I believe is totally acceptable. In fact, I applaud men who do that. Because this is a way of making yourself better. Maybe not getting into a relationship that you're not ready for. And if you're very clear in your intention for this to be a temporary thing, a short-term detour to improve yourself and make your market value a little higher, can't blame you. Because you're going to make things better for yourself and you're going to make things better for whoever you land. And I think it's just awesome. Anyway, okay, so I'm done with everything that I was going to talk about tonight. Enjoy your Thursday/Friday Junior, as I call it. See you tomorrow for the Friday night episode and the Simpademic. You guys have a stellar night. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. And we'll see you tomorrow.